The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They prize up all UK and Irish racing the night before.
Hello everyone, welcome along to the Racing Post Weekend Review Postcast with me, Sam Laurie, filling in for Bruce Millington this week. I've got Nick Watts in the studio with me, Lee Mottershead joining us on the phone. We've also got Paddy Power from Power Tower in Ireland on the line. Lots to pack in. We're going to be looking back on the action in Ireland, also at Deauville, and the highlights from here in Britain, and a brief look ahead to the Ebor Festival at York. So lots to get through, and only one place we can start. Front page of today's paper, racing's new superstar, Caravaggio, a winner of the Phoenix Stakes in Ireland over the weekend. Lee Mottershead, initial thoughts, Caravaggio, are we getting carried away calling him a new superstar straight away, or do you think he could be the Guineas winner next season?
I don't think he could be the Guineas winner next season, and I don't think Aidan O'Brien really thinks he could be the Guineas winner next season. Not in that he wouldn't be good enough to win a Guineas, but he wouldn't have the stamina, I don't think. In terms of pure ability, he's clearly hugely exciting. I remember I said in the Friday podcast that Joe Lyons had said in the Coventry Stakes Winners' Enclosure that Aidan had said to him, "This is the best horse I've trained." Aidan was sort of going along those lines, certainly in terms of saying he was the fastest horse he'd ever trained after the Phoenix Stakes. Or there are past quotes of Aidan's that suggest that Star Spangled Banner once clocked a quicker time on the Ballydor Gallops. But hey, this is a very, very fast horse. I thought he was probably visually even more impressive in the Coventry Stakes, and I'm not sure what yesterday's form amounts to, given that the one horse he was meeting with proper group form didn't run his race. The rest, Courage Under Fire, Grand Coalition and Ambiguity, in all probability they're handicappers. But that was reflecting the fact that the Caravaggio started 1-2-8. He could do no more than win. He was immensely impressive. He's a beautiful horse, and I would expect him to be a massively exciting sprinter next season, with the Commonwealth Cup his obvious target.
And Paddy, what was the interest from you guys like? Did you see much money for him for next year's Classic?
Well, he's into 4-1, but like these ones, you don't really see much money for them anti-post. It's more like you put the prices out there. If you make a big mistake, people pile in as quickly as they can, but you adapt your prices as quickly as you can as well. So, I mean, he's 4-1 favourite for the Guineas next year. I guess that's the most talked about target for him. Whether he goes for that or not, we'll wait and see. Like, maybe it's one of the Ascot races, maybe it is the Commonwealth Cup. I'm just going to have a look and see what price he is there for the Commonwealth Cup. He's 6-1 for the Commonwealth Cup, so if he knew he was going there, you'd say that could be interesting. But that Lady Aurelia at Ascot, so the two, himself and Lady Aurelia, if you remember that, a US horse at Ascot, the two of them were the two that were jaw-dropping of the performances, particularly of the sprinters. And I agree, I think at Ascot he was more impressive and the ground was softer, so he's done it on two different types of ground now, I guess. And he looks pretty awesome.
Nick, 4-1 for the Guineas or 6-1 for the Commonwealth Cup. Do either appeal at this stage?
It's a long way in advance, isn't it? I'd agree with what Lee said. I don't really see the need to try and stretch him out to a mile, really, because he's a very good sprinter and he's very exciting to watch. He's very, very fast, as Aidan has said, and we're used to some hyperbole over the years from Ballydoyle, but the horse seems to be living up to it. And maybe not as impressive as he was at Ascot, but I think he was 8-1 on to win yesterday. So, it's hard to look. It's sometimes hard to look impressive when you're expected to lap these kind of horses, and anything less is kind of looked upon disparagingly. But he did exactly what he had to do. He is very exciting. I'll just keep him as a sprinter. It's nice seeing horses run fast, isn't it? Do you think?
I just as well, regarding that the sprinting future, I'm by no means a breeding expert, but you look at his breeding. He's by a sire Scat Daddy whose stamina index is 6.1 furlongs. He's got 4 siblings, or 3 siblings, I think, all of whom had sires with greater capacity to bring into play stamina, and none of them really excelled over a mile. So the visual evidence and the breeding evidence does suggest he's going to be all about speed.
But Lee, do we think he's going to train on? Looking back at Aidan's past winners of this race, he's won it 15 times now. I mean, Master Craftsman, Zoffany, George Washington, they all went on to be decent 3-year-olds and all did stay a miler, but plenty of others never really sort of hit the winners' enclosure again at 3.
Well, in including, of course, the horse who we were eulogising about at the Curragh last year after he won the race, Air Force Blue. We'll go on to that race yesterday, but after the Dewhurst last year, Aidan said, I'd say there's no doubt he's the best 2-year-old we've had. The size of him, the scope, the way he travels, and when you let him go, he delivers. Well, he stopped delivering, and it's not a science, is it? Some will train on, some won't train on. Visually, you'd say, he's a great 2-year-old and would hopefully become a great 3-year-old. You can't guarantee. I just think maybe also worth pointing out is that the lack of any sort of competition in that race yesterday. If you take in the fact that you had a Ballydor horse, you had a horse trained by Joseph against him, and then one from Johnny Murtagh, and another rival. You only had one rival in there with proper aspirations to beat him. Aidan's on the race 15 times now, and although he is an immensely successful trainer, brilliant trainer, and none of it is his fault in a sense, but I think it is a problem for Irish flat racing that one stable is so dominant. And I say that's not his fault. He's not guilty of anything except being a brilliant racehorse trainer. But the fact that one yard can win this race 15 times in a relatively short space of time, I don't think is great for Irish flat racing.
So there's another point on the sprinters, the younger sprinters as well. You see, and maybe it's why Wesley Ward does so well at Ascot, that some of them are just far further developed than some of the other ones, So Caravaggio does look like a bit of a monster. Like he looks like very muscular and all that kind of stuff. I just remember with Slade Power, with Eddie Lynham, when he was getting beat as a 2 or 3-year-old, I think. But even when he'd win, the jockey Wayne Lord and Eddie would be smiles from ear to ear after finishing like second and third, and I'd be kind of going, "What's going on here?" And they were just saying, "Oh, geez, wait till next year," because he was all gangly and he wasn't fully developed, and I wouldn't have a rashers. But they were saying that he was like a teenager, like one leg's longer than the other type of thing. And it just all comes together for him then, and some of them grow at different times. So I'd say maybe Air Force Blue was one of those. He just was very early developer, and then others caught up on him, and he just kind of all went a bit pear-shaped.
Yeah, Air Force Blue trailed in last in the Phoenix Sprint on Sunday. Nick, is this the end of the road for him?
Yeah, I find it hard to give him any more excuses. I'd kind of run out before yesterday, but he was still punted. I think he went off even money again yesterday, but this is a real problem for Ballydoyle, isn't it? Because he'd be hard to market as a stallion prospect now, I think, with his dire performances as a 3-year-old. You'd be worried if he went to him that his progeny will stop at the end of 2. And I think the wider problem for Ballydoyle, potentially, is the fact they put so much store in this stallion Warfront, and not many of them train on. We've had Declaration of War, who obviously went on to be a very, very good older horse, so there are exceptions to it. But you look at War Command a few years ago, one the Dewhurst didn't really train on. And Air Force Blue has just been dire all season, and they put such faith in this stallion. Is it being misplaced? I don't know.
What do you think, Lee?
They've had some great success with the horse, and they clearly believe in the horse. Just looking down the list of his project now, Air Force Blue, say Declaration of War did really well. War Command. Listen, I wouldn't be a breeding expert. I wouldn't confess to having an opinion that others should carry great weight by on this one. So I will pass the buck.
Okay, well, let's concentrate on the race. And the winner, Toscanini, won it pretty well. And if he gets quickish ground, do you think he could be a player in some of the bigger sprints later in the year, Lee?
I would be surprised. I know they're saying he's strengthened up. And that he's maturing into a really good horse. But I didn't again think that was a fantastic race. Eastern Impact had been beaten in the Chester Listed race the time before. As we said, Air Force Blue has blown out completely. That to me, if you look at the overall form, I didn't think it was a fantastic Group 3. He won it pretty well, but is he a Group 1 winner waiting to happen? I don't think so.
We also saw Signs of Blessing, who was only beaten half a length in the Diamond Jubilee, win the big Group 1 in Deauville over the weekend. Paddy, of the two, Toscanini, Signs of Blessing, which do you think's more likely to take top honours later in the season?
The betting would suggest, the Champion Sprint, for example, on Champions Day at Ascot, it looks like Signs of Blessing is now 14 to 1 shot from 20s. So maybe that one, but I guess if Toscanini wants the fast ground, it's unlikely to get faster ground later in the season. So I think that might have been as good as Toscanini is, maybe, and Signs of Blessing has a bit more potential. But that's going to be a lot will depend on the ground at Ascot. But it's going to be a red hot race as always.
14-1. Nick, Signs of Blessing for Ascot. Does that tempt you?
Nah, not really. No, I thought that was a bit of a mess of a race yesterday. The stalls opened for those three on the far side, didn't they? And they had to reinstall all of them. We had a tragic ending for the favourite Gold Fun 3/4 of the way through the race. We had horses like Dutch Connection, who probably isn't a sprinter, finishing close up as well. So yeah, question marks there. It's 14-1's a big prize, but it doesn't really, it's not got me leaping out ready to part company with some money for him.
Did anything else take your eye on Sunday? We had Ventura Storm won the other big race at Daybell. A few decent maidens at the Curragh.
Yeah, there was some good maidens at the Curragh, I thought, and Aidan introduced some nice horses. But one that we'd seen before, Hydrangea, who was second, I think, at Galway the time before. She's one of those typical of Aidan's that seems to be improving with racing. She was odds on to win yesterday, so you could say she should have done. But there's something about the way she did it. I thought she did it very, very well. Wouldn't be surprised if she goes on to better things. I think she's got the debutante stakes and the Moy-Glare entries, so she's beautifully bred, of course, as they all are at Ballydoyle. But yeah, there's just something about the way she won. I thought she was good.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Paddy? Anything catch your eye on Sunday?
Not particularly. I thought. There's a couple. I thought Toscanini did it well. I thought Caravaggio. I was actually relatively impressed with Caravaggio. I know it was at 1-8, so it needs to be winning like that. I guess Utah wasn't bad, but it's just the boring Aidan O'Brien winning every bloody maiden, isn't it?
What about you, Lee? Anything take your fancy at all?
You mentioned Ventura Storm. He won that race well, the Group 3 in Deauville. He's been very well campaigned by Richard Hannon, and this was a good spot, this race, to aim the horse at. They're talking about maybe going to St Leger. I don't really think he's a St Leger winner, unless we had a very weak St Leger, in which case he might have a chance. But he's been campaigned well, and there's more good races in him.
OK, well, up next we'll be looking back on Saturday's action.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus, please gamble responsibly.
Time now to look back on the action on Saturday. Up at Haydock, it was the Rose of Lancaster Stakes. This was sort of like the old days. Coolmore up against Godolphin, with Royal Artillery getting the better of Scottish in that race. Arab Spring, the returning runner for Sir Michael Stout, was a fast finishing third. Nick, initial impressions on the race? How good's the form?
It might work out to be all right. And I thought Royal Artillery beat the right horse in Scottish, because he was the one that came into the race in best form, and he'd won a listed race the time before. And Royal Artillery's been a real slow burner this season, but I do remember him being really prominent early in the season for all the classic betting, because he'd won a maiden really well at 2. So, really well touted. Obviously didn't come to hand in time for any of the big races earlier on in the season, but bounced back to form there, and wouldn't be surprised to see him have a good second half of the campaign. So, yeah, I'd take a positive view of the form. I think, he was highly regarded at 2, and it's just needed a bit of time, and he might prove himself to be a good one in the second half.
Do you think he could be up to competing in Group 1s?
Maybe by the autumn. You would never say never of the horse of John Gosden's. He's obviously a master trainer, and, if he was fancied for Guineas and Derbies earlier in the season, then you couldn't say he wouldn't go back and compete at the top level later in the season. It's like all these horses. The classics come very early for some of them, and early in their 3-year-old career. Some of them just aren't ready for it, and he might have been one of those that's just needed a few months off, and he's come back strong.
And Lee, on Friday's show, you were keen on Arab Spring. He didn't run too badly back in third. He
didn't run too badly, no. He's been very unfortunate through his career in that he's not had many chances to really show how good he is, but I thought this was an eye-catching run. There's still a lot of the season left to go if Sir Michael Stout can keep him sound. As I said on Friday, the fact that he's kept him in training at 6 suggests they do think there are big races that can be won by him. So I'd definitely keep him as one to follow for the rest of the season. I think Royal Artillery, in some ways, is an example of another sort of a war front, in that he seems to be getting better now, quite late developing. He made his debut late as a 2-year-old. He's a great big strapping horse. In some ways you'd expect him to be getting better and better. But I remember he was desperately impressive as a juvenile at Doncaster first time out. Good tip by Ron Wood in the Spotlight section on Saturday for Royal Artillery. He fancied him. Scottish, I could see him going on to Australia for the Spring Carnival. I'm sure there are options for him there. Back in fifth, another disappointing run by Foundation, who just hasn't progressed from his 2-year-old promise, and I'd expect him either to end up with Chris Waller in Australia or with Paul Nicholls over hurdles.
Yeah, that certainly hasn't been the season they hoped for with that one. Paddy, what do you make of Royal Artillery? Is he one that you guys would be keen to keep on side, do you think, for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it was a race where, I think Lee said it there, so Foundation is obviously just a disappointing horse. Hasn't lived up to potential. Scottish looked like one that could step up to become a serious horse, but maybe just isn't all that. Arab Spring does obviously will improve as after come back after layoff. So it's hard to know the depth of the form. So yeah, why not? Royal Artillery could definitely improve, and probably will improve for it. But Group 1, I'm not sure.
And the other group race on Saturday was the Sweet Solera Stakes at Newmarket, won by Nations Alexander, a filly who'd been well beaten by Fair Eva earlier in the summer. Nick, what did we make of this one?
Not much, really. It was, Sweet Solera winners, they don't generally tend to go on and do great things, do they? I think the last top one was maybe Soviet Song a long time ago.
Rainbow View won a Group 1, didn't she?
She did, but she was beaten a few times as well, wasn't she? Yeah, she's won well, but I think she's beaten behind Roly Poly at Newmarket before that. I don't think there's any pretensions here that there's this fantastic form, and if you're looking at the fillies as a whole, Fair Eva sets a huge standard, and I don't think Nations Alexander is anywhere near that, really.
Yeah, in some ways, Lee, it sort of exposed that the rest of the fillies in there, that the fact that Nations Alexander could win and win quite comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. Godolphin came in there with 2 fillies who'd won maidens nicely, who looked like they could be pretty smart. They were both beaten. And as Nick says, Sweet Solera winners generally don't go on to really be classic contenders, and I'd be surprised if this wasn't her day.
Okay, well, time now to turn our attention to the Shergar Cup. Lee, you gave it a big up in your column on Monday. What were your highlights of the day?
I think for me that the highlight was Hayley Turner's winner. In some ways she was a story of the day. She came back and she gave that winner a very good ride as well. Just a reminder that Hayley has been a real talent in the weighing room, and in that sense she'll be missed. And aside from that, I think great to see someone like Gavin Lorena, who we've not really seen over here before, come out and ride 2 winners. Great to see Thierry Jarnet, a veteran of the French weighing room, ride 2 winners. Of course, he won 2 arcs on Trev. And I just think that the Shergar Cup is a day that, as I say in the column, it's fine not to like it, it's fine to be indifferent about it, but to be there and see nearly 30,000 people enjoying themselves on the racecourse. Yes, plenty of them were there for a whole day out and to see Ronan Keating and Lawson and Gabrielle singing after racing, but they were enjoying themselves there. And I just think if you take the Shergar Cup for what it is, a fun day out at a time of the year when you're at a break between Goodwood and York, with the best run in the world, there's nothing really else in Britain that's going to catch your attention racing-wise between those 2 festival meetings. I think in that sense the Shergar Cup works well, and it does bring in the chance to see these top international jockeys that you wouldn't normally have a chance of seeing racing anywhere really, apart from maybe the Royal meeting in Britain, and in that sense I think it's a real success.
Yeah, certainly a big platform for the international riders. Gavin Lorena, do you think he's a jockey that we might see a bit more of over here?
We're staying around for a few days, so it will be good to see him come back again. I mean, the jockey that has ridden here this year that I would love to see more of is James McDonald. I think he was sensational in his stint. He said that he wouldn't mind spending more time here. And I wrote last week, I think if he did he'd be my tip for champion jockey. I think he's a great judge of pace. Trainers clearly like him very much indeed. It's hard to see how he could do it, although given the shorter nature of the championship season, I suppose it's just possible that if he could leave Australia after the championships there, that would enable him to start off a sort of Guineas time with us, which he's spoken about wanting to do. And then given that the Spring Carnival build-up, well, it begins sort of in late August, but it then develops. It wouldn't be impossible that one day he could really have a go at it, but of course his main job is servicing Godolphin in Australia.
Yeah, and talking of champion jockey this year, Sylvester de Sousa, the man that captained the rest of the world team to win the Shergar Cup at the weekend. And Paddy, there's nothing really that can stop him, bar injury, winning another jockey's title, is there?
I'd be amazed now, especially with Ryan Moore sidelined for the moment. Now, obviously, he has to probably, well, maybe he can afford to have an injury and a ban and everything, and still win handy enough. I think. Yeah, he's probably home and host, to be fair. And it's one of those ones. I mean, it's like, I actually am a fan of the Shergar Cup. I really like that, but I think the Jockeys Championships, I don't know, just never really gets my imagination. I mean, it does the last day if there's nothing between them. You know what I mean? But for the whole way through, it's not something that really kind of floats my boat. I mean, I think because when you see some of the jockeys, some of the best jockeys, not really caring about winning the championship, they just want to win the big races, which is totally understandable and absolutely fair enough. Then you wonder, does it devalue the sure perseverance that winning, that getting the number of winners does have, you know?
Yeah, that's an important point, isn't it, Nick? And with Silvestre de Sousa, you know that he is going all out to win the title rather than picking up big races abroad.
Yeah, he puts in the graft, doesn't he? And that's what you've got to do to be a champion jockey. It's what Richard Johnson did day in, day out last season. He didn't necessarily get the high-profile winners, didn't get the Cheltenham winners, but he got the numerical advantage. And it's like de Sousa, you never see him particularly, riding a fancy horse in the Derby or a Guineas or something like that. But he'll go to Hamilton on a Friday night. He'll go all over the country. And yeah, I mean, he's long odds on to win the title, and justifiably so. If there is one who could challenge him, and I'm really scraping the barrel here, but Luke Morris, he's another in exactly the same ilk as de Sousa, and he'll go anywhere, ride 2 meetings a day. He literally will go all over the country for winners. He's about 10 behind de Sousa at the moment. But if you actually look at the number of rides he gets, he's actually had more rides this season by about 20 or 30 to de Sousa. It's just obviously his strike rate isn't quite what Silvestre's is, but at 10 behind, I wouldn't rule him out. And I think he's any price. I think he's about 66 to 1. If he got a bit of a charge on and people got behind him, it's not impossible he can make a race of it, particularly with Ryan Moore out of the running. But all things being equal, it probably is de Sousa's again.
Just continuing that theme as well, I'd agree with Nick. I don't think he's absolutely home and host. If you look at the table, he's on 62 winners. James Doyle's on 57. Ryan's on 57. We know Ryan's not going to be around for a while. But Jim Crowley's on 52, one more than Luke Morris. I remember tipping Jim in the column. I think it was 50 to 1 at that stage. He's not that price now, sort of 20 to 1ish. Again, he's only 10 winners behind. He's on a 7s on shot at Foss last tonight. He's a sort of guy that will work very hard for it. His agent is Tony Hind, who's Ryan's agent. Tony's very good at making champion jockeys. Listen, Silvestre de Sousa is still deservedly the long odds-on favourite, but I don't think he's an absolute penalty kick. And if someone can get on a roll like Jim Crowley, like Luke Morris, then you never know.
Have a look, Paddy. There could be some value bets then in the top jockey market after all. Just looking at the action over the weekend as well, Lee, I know you're quite taken by Frosted in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Frosted is a horse that we thought we knew well. We thought he was a very good horse, but not an outstanding horse. He was well beaten in the Dubai World Cup behind California Chrome, and he only actually ran £3 below his PB on Racing Post ratings. He's had 2 runs in the sort of recent past, including on Saturday, when he's been absolutely incredible. He ran to an RPR of 130 in the Met Mile at Belmont when he won by 14 lengths. Was given a different sort of ride in the Whitney at Saratoga on Saturday, but from an aggressive ride, he set incredibly fast early fractions, which normally you'd expect would lead a horse to run into a hole down the home straight. But he actually won very cosily under Joel Rosario, running to 126. He's now back to the 130 with a 126. That suggests he's turned around. In some ways, it's not necessarily a surprise. He's a young horse, only a 4-year-old. You'd expect him to be improving, but he clearly is. And a rematch between him and California Chrome at Santa Anita in the Breeders' Cup Classic will be well worth watching.
Paddy, are you much of a fan of the American racing?
Once a year. When it comes to Breeders' Cup night, all that kind of stuff, you do all your swatting up and reading the posts and going like, James, trying to get your handle on. So we can't have an Irish winner in every race, can we? That kind of stuff. So yeah, okay. I wouldn't be a huge follower of it, but I do enjoy the Breeders' Cup.
Nick's shaking his head in the studio as well. So
yeah, I think Morley Street when he won was the last race I watched in America.
Okay, so 1 horse each then to go in your horse tracker before we look ahead to York. We'll start with you, Nick.
Yeah, horse of Hugo Palmer's the one on the weekend called Majoris. He won easily. He's only a nursery one at Newmarket, but he's another son of Frankel who's going the right way. And I think he's much better than Nursery Company. I think he could make his mark in listed group races later in the season.
Yeah, boosting Frankel's stats of winners to runners ratio even further. Lee, one for you to go in the horse tracker?
Well, I was pretty keen on that one that Nick mentioned. So in that sense, I'll go with a safer one. It's a bit boring, but Zeffirino, son of Frankel, made his debut in a 4-runner maiden at Newmarket on Friday night. Normally a good maiden, won by Motionless last year. It was a funny sort of race in that they went no pace and then sprinted, but the way he travelled through the race I thought was very impressive. He visually looks like Frankel as well. He was beaten by a nice horse of William Haggis's called Seniority for the Queen, who again ran a cracking first race to win first time out. And although there are only 4 runners in that race, and therefore it's easy to say, well, is that form any good? I just get the sense that the first 2, Seniority and Zeffirino, could well easily be group class.
Okay, so 2 eye catchers for the price of 1 there. Paddy, what about you? At 1 for the horse tracker?
So rather than a horse tracker, I want to do a trainer tracker. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I just have a feeling now that David O'Meara is just about to hit the ground properly running, and I think York, in the handicaps at York, he's the man to follow.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at 1 meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus, please gamble responsibly.
Yes, you're listening to the Racing Postcast with me, Sam Laurie, Nick Watts in the studio, Lee Mottershead and Paddy Power on the phone. Just before we wrap up today's show, we'll just take a brief look ahead to the Ebor Festival at York and the big race, the Juddmonte International, postponed up against Hawkbill if he gets supplemented, possibly US Army Ranger as well. Paddy, how are you betting on this one?
Yeah, so we have postponed as a hot favourite, not hot favourite, but warm favourite at 2-1. US Army Rangers 4-1 along with Hawkbill, and then Time Test 9-2, and then the Gurkha 6-1, Grey Gatsby 10-1, Highland Reel 10-1. So yeah, postponed is the talking point, I guess, and that's the one you had in the post today in your Monday jury, and whether there's a certainty or not. I mean, I guess he has looked very, very good, particularly at Epsom. He looked really, really good, and it's probably going to be very difficult to beat. But York's a very different track, and it does kind of suit front running. I wouldn't have much bulletproof. I think 2-1 is. I wouldn't be backing a anti-post 2-1 anyway.
Of the 3-year-olds, would you prefer US Army Ranger to Hawkbill?
No, I think Hawkbill's improving at a rate of knots as far as I can see to my really, really bad judging eye. I think Hawkbill is one that I think was much better the last day than I thought he was. So I think Hawkbill could be the one that keeps improving.
And Lee, it looks like it's going to be a cracking race. Who would you side with at this stage?
Well, you just want to know that postponed is actually going to line up, wouldn't you? He had to miss the King George after getting a virus just before the race. There has been a virus around Newmarket, which has been reported recently, that's been affecting a number of trainers. So I certainly won't be backing him at this stage for the Juddmonte International. I think if he wins, I think he is probably by some way the most talented horse in the field. I thought it was dazzling in Dubai on 2 occasions this spring, and then again when winning the Coronation Cup. I wouldn't be at all afraid about him dropping back in distance. You can see what they're doing as well. It will make him a much more attractive starting prospect when he goes to stand at Darley. But you just want to know he's actually going to run. So I wouldn't be backing him until the point on Monday when declarations are made. But if you get 2-1, 9-4 on Monday when decks are made, I think that'd be a stonking bet.
What about you, Nick? What's your view on it?
I'm all over Time Test. I have been all season, and the proviso with him is that he does need fast ground. So if he had a dry time of it in the Knavesmire, then I definitely want to be with him. I was absolutely
good enough to beat postponed.
Well, postponed has been beaten on every start he's had over a mile and 2, which is quite interesting. I was looking at his record earlier, and like Lee said, on the back of an absence from missing the King George, he may not be absolutely cherry ripe, and I've always thought Time Test is a Group 1 horse. I was absolutely gutted when he missed Ascot, when Ascot decided to be rained upon for about 3 days prior to the meeting.
I'm not sure Ascot decided that, Nick, but you can't blame them for that now. You can blame them for the dress code and all that kind of stuff, but not for that.
And then, of course, he went to Sandown, and it was the same story. He was kind of forced into running him, I think, Roger Charlton, against his wishes, because otherwise his whole campaign would have been scuppered by weather. And again, I just thought he travelled like the best horse in the race and just floundered when he was let down, couldn't act on it at all. And Yeah, I mean, he's probably workmanlike when he won last time, but it might be a bit better than it looked. Mondi, at least, is certainly no mug, and he beat him in second, and he might improve again. He'll need to, but I think a mile and 2 on fast ground, I just want to see what he can do, because I'm sure he's capable of a big one.
Mm-hmm. And the other big race to just quickly look ahead to, the Nunthorpe. Paddy, you've already told us to lump on Soul Power for this at 20-1. What about?
Everybody laughs when they say. I can hear the laugh. I can hear the smile. I'll show you. I tell you, the other side of your face now next Friday evening.
What does the top of the market look like then?
So Nunthorpe, where are we going? Let me find it here.
I noticed you're a standout 12-1 on
we are,
Caravaggio, and a few other firms are around 5-1.
Yeah, I think we're probably more realistic. I think Caravaggio is probably an unlikely runner, isn't he? And that's probably the main reason why. So if he did turn up, obviously he'd be towards the top of the market, if not favourite. But Profitable is one of those horses that at the end of the season we'd probably look back and go, wow, we should have given him more credit than we were giving him the whole way along, because he's won a couple of the big races. He does it bravely as well. It reminds me a little bit of Lethal Force a couple of years ago. Once you win at a big price first time up, it takes you a while to get the credit that you deserve as a sprinter. He's 7-2 favourite. If the rain comes, York, the ground changes so quickly. I know from experience, there's a few Nunthorpes who've been there with good to firm ground on Thursday. It's lash rain Thursday night and it's been soft on Friday, which is obviously a pain in the backside for for Soul Power. But so Mecca's Angel was very impressive last year, beating Acapulco, but wants soft ground and has been, I guess, in and out disappointing at Ascot. So Limato, I think maybe the 6 furlongs to be a bit or further a bit better for Limato. I'm not sure about Acapulco, Lady Aurelia, if they turn up, but it's just an open race, as it always is. Takeover was really good at Goodwood, but just probably like usually ahead, not good enough to win a Group 1, which is really frustrating for Takeover. He's been a real proper consistent horse over the years. So I mean, I'm obviously pinning my colours to Soul Power's mass, but I'm not naive enough to think he's getting any quicker, but you never know, his day might come again.
And what about you, Nick? Have you got a view?
Yeah, I have actually. I don't think Lady Aurelia or Caravaggio will run, but there is a 2-year-old I'm interested in who is going to be supplemented apparently, called Yalta, trained by Mark Johnston. Disappointed a couple of times at Ascot against Caravaggio, but he dropped back to 5 furlongs on the say-so with James McDonald actually at Goodwood last time to win the Malcolm. I thought he just blitzed them. He showed outstanding speed, and he wasn't beating mugs either. He beat the Last Lion. He was off the bridle halfway, just couldn't go with him, won by 3 lengths. I thought that was a great performance, and as we all know, the 2-year-olds get a huge allowance in the Nunthorpe, and I think it's the plan to go there, and I think he's won 10-12-1 at the moment. I think Yalta could really make an impact with that weight differential he's getting from the older horses.
And Lee, have you got as much confidence as Nick for one?
No, I wouldn't have as much confidence as Nick for one. But I do think that if Henry Candy and owner Paul Jacobs decided to supplement Limato for the Nunthorpe, then I think he would be the one for me to win it. I thought he travelled in the July Cup like a horse who again would have absolutely no problem at all dropping back to 5 furlongs. He would finish strongly, and I think he would be a thrilling addition to the race. And as I said before in the paper, I think the improvement in the whole sprinting scene the last couple of years is really encouraging, really to be welcomed, and we could be in for a very good Nunthorpe. And if Soul Power did happen to win, it would have romantics like Paddy and myself beaming.
We'd have to have you on the show on Monday, Paddy, if Soul Power wins.
Yeah, if you could peel me out of some nightclub in York by Monday, that'd be grand.
What about the rest of the week, Paddy? Any fancies for you at this stage?
Not really. For me, I'm just looking forward to the Friday. I'm definitely racing Thursday, Friday. Hopefully, I'm trying to get the green card to go Wednesday as well. So, I'll just keep my options open. But I am keeping my eye. Maybe in the Ebor itself, it's probably pretty boring. But I was thinking Ivan Grozny if he goes for Willie Mullins, just another one that looks to have just improved hand over fist and enjoying the summer racing. So maybe he's going to be favoured about 10-1, probably shorter on the day. But yeah, keep an eye on him maybe.
And Lee, I guess you'll be up there. Any horses you're particularly looking forward to seeing?
Well, not horses particularly as such, although the horses at York are always fantastic and it'll be a great meeting. But for me, once I hear the brass band that parks very close to the press room strike up its first tune, then I know the Ebor meeting is about to begin, and particularly when they get round to the floral dance, which I always think is it's the finest of all modern brass band tunes played by brass bands.
Okay, well, the floral dance wasn't what I was expecting you to say for that. Nick, last word to you. Anything else at York to look forward to?
Second what Paddy said about Ivan Grozny, I saw him win at Aintree on the final race on the Grand National Day under David Mullins, and he looked great over hurdles then, but showed he could do it on the flat last time at Galway. Willie's won the race before, the Ebor, so yeah, I think he's got a massive chance. He might be favourite, but he's 10-1 at the moment. I'd take that.
Okay, there you go. 10-1 winner of the Ebor, flagged up here by Nick and Paddy. Do join us again on Friday when we'll be looking ahead to all of the weekend's action.
The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They stream all UK and Irish racing live on your mobile, tablet or PC.